A single dad rescued his drunk boss from trouble, and the next day she made sure not to forget. The sun, pale and distant behind the colony's artificial sky, was setting over the high-rise towers, painting them in soft shades of orange and silver. He had spent the entire day in the engineering bays, recalibrating the terraforming equipment for Sector 12. It was exhausting work, but someone had to make sure the colony's water systems didn't fail. He tightened his jacket and checked his wrist console. Leela's daycare pod would close in 30 minutes. Just enough time, he muttered to himself, already planning the quick walk home. The streets were busy, filled with workers finishing their shifts and traders packing up for the night. Hollow signs flickered overhead, advertising everything from nutrient pills to anti-gravity skateboards. Ethan weaved through the crowd, careful not to jostle anyone. His mind was on his daughter, imagining the big grin she'd give him when he arrived with the small hydroponic plant he had promised her. That's when he saw her. Alara Voss, the colony's project commander, was stumbling along the street like a ship lost in a storm. Her usual commanding presence was completely gone, replaced by slurred steps and unsteady arms. Her black uniform, always crisp and perfectly fitted, was wrinkled, and one of her gloves was missing. Ethan froze for a second, recognizing her immediately. Alara was known for her discipline and professionalism. This was not her. Before he could decide what to do, two rough-looking figures stepped from the shadows. Their cybernetic enhancements glinted under the streetlights, and their expressions were anything but friendly. They eyed Alara like a predator sees its prey. "Looks like tonight's our lucky night," one of them sneered. Ethan's mind raced. He knew he couldn't just walk away. Alara was important, not only for the colony but for the team he respected and worked hard for. And more than that, no one deserved to be cornered like this. He glanced at his wrist console, where a small holographic map of the area pulsed faintly. He calculated escape routes, energy outputs, and even the weight of the tools in his backpack. Ethan took a deep breath. "Okay, time to do this," he muttered. He stepped forward, keeping his voice calm but firm. "Hey, back off!" The two men turned, their eyes narrowing. "And who are you?" one of them demanded. "Her bodyguard now." Ethan didn't answer. He reached into his backpack and pulled out a compact magnetic taser. The device wasn't lethal, but it could temporarily disrupt cybernetic implants, enough to give him an edge. He activated it with a soft click, and a low hum vibrated in his hand. "Step away from her or I'll make you regret it," he said. The men laughed, but it was nervous laughter. Ethan could see it in the way they shifted their weight, unsure. He didn't wait for them to act. With precise timing, he fired the taser, and arcs of electricity jumped toward the nearest man's cybernetic arm. Sparks flew, and the man stumbled backward, cursing. Alara blinked, her eyes half-focused on the scene, unsure of what was happening. "Ethan?" she slurred, her voice weak but recognizable. "Yes, it's me. Stay behind me," he replied, scanning the area for the second attacker. The other man lunged toward her, but Ethan was faster. He grabbed a metal pipe from the street and swung it in a controlled arc, knocking the attacker off balance. The man hit the ground with a grunt, dazed. Ethan didn't waste time. He grabbed Alara's arm gently but firmly. "Come on." "Move with me," he said, guiding her toward a narrow alleyway. She stumbled, leaning on him for support. "Thank you," she muttered, her voice barely audible. Ethan gave her a reassuring nod. He didn't respond, there was no time. They reached a small maintenance hatch that led into the colony's service tunnels. The air smelled of recycled oxygen and heated metal. Ethan activated the hatch, and they slipped inside just as the two men recovered and shouted from the street above. Once inside, Ethan led Alara to a safe corner. He set down his backpack and checked her for injuries. Aside from a few scratches and bruises, she was fine. He handed her a water flask from his pack. "Drink," he said simply. She took it, her hands trembling. Ethan noticed something in her eyes. Fear, yes, but also surprise. She wasn't used to being saved. Commander Alara Voss, the one everyone respected and feared in the colony, was now relying on a single dad engineer to keep her safe. You saved me," she said finally, her voice steadier. "I just didn't want anyone hurting you," Ethan replied, shrugging as if it were simple. Alara's lips pressed together, a mix of gratitude and something else Ethan couldn't quite place. She tried to stand on her own but wobbled slightly. Ethan caught her again, supporting her fully this time. "You're impressive," she admitted, finally managing a small smile. Ethan chuckled. Just a dad trying to get home to his kid. Her eyes widened at that. "You have a child." "Yes, Leela, 7. Brightest kid in the colony and the loudest," he said with a small laugh. Alara's smile softened and she leaned back against the wall. For a moment she simply looked at him, studying him as if trying to memorize every detail. I should have known better than to wander out alone," she said quietly. "You're human. Everyone makes mistakes," Ethan replied. They stayed in the tunnel for several minutes, listening to the faint sounds of the city above. Ethan could hear the distant hum of hovercars and the chatter of late-night workers. Eventually, the danger seemed to fade. The attackers had left, or at least they were gone from immediate reach. Ethan helped Alara stand again. "I can get you back to your quarters," he said. "No, I think I can manage from here," she said, testing her balance. "But thank you, Ethan, truly," he nodded. "Take care, and maybe lay off the cantina for a while." Alara chuckled softly, the sound light and almost musical. "Yes, perhaps I will." Ethan turned and left, careful not to look back too long. He had a daughter waiting for him, and a night's rest was long overdue. Yet, even as he walked away, he could feel her eyes on his back. Commander Alara Voss, who rarely showed vulnerability, had noticed him. By the time he reached the street again, the sky was nearly dark. Neon signs reflected on wet pavements, creating shimmering patterns like rivers of color. Ethan couldn't help but smile as he thought of Leela's excited face. Tonight she would be thrilled with the hydroponic plant he had promised. It was small, simple, but it was for her, and in her eyes it would be magical. As he walked home, he allowed himself a quiet thought. Sometimes even heroes need a little help. And sometimes the simplest acts of courage are the ones that make the most difference. Little did Ethan know, Alara would not forget his courage. Not today, not tomorrow. In a colony built on rules and hierarchy, she had seen something rare, a man who acted with skill, compassion, and instinct. Someone who could be trusted when the stakes were highest. And that, she decided, was not something she would ever forget. The next morning, New Arcadia shimmered under the soft glow of the artificial sun. Ethan Mercer adjusted his work jacket and tightened his tool belt as he stepped into the engineering bay. The familiar hum of machinery greeted him, and the scent of lubricants and recycled air filled the space. It was another long day ahead, filled with calibrations, diagnostics, and maintenance checks, but something felt different. As he approached his workstation, he noticed Commander Alara Voss standing near the central terminal. Her presence immediately drew the attention of the other engineers, but Ethan ignored them. He focused on her, his mind flashing back to last night, how he had guided her through danger, how she had leaned on him for support, and the look in her eyes when she had finally smiled at him. "Good morning, Mercer," she said, her voice calm and professional, yet carrying a subtle warmth that Ethan had never heard from her before. He nodded respectfully. "Morning, Commander." There was a pause, a careful silence that felt charged with meaning. Then Alara stepped closer, her eyes scanning the data on the terminal. She tapped the screen, and a holographic display of the colony's water purification system appeared. "I need your expertise on a critical project," she said. Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Of course." "What's the problem?" Alara glanced at him briefly before returning her attention to the terminal. "Sector 14's water filtration units are malfunctioning. We need to recalibrate the main nodes before the next dust storm hits." If we fail, the colony could lose up to 30% of its clean water supply in less than 48 hours. Ethan's stomach tightened. This was serious. Sector 14 was one of the colony's most populated areas. Any failure could be catastrophic. Yet there was no hesitation in her voice, no panic, only controlled urgency. "I'll get started immediately," Ethan said, already moving toward the workbench. As he prepared his tools, Alara continued to observe him, silently studying the way he worked. Every motion he made, every tool he picked up, every calculation he entered into the terminal, she seemed to note it. She didn't interrupt, but the focus in her gaze made Ethan feel both nervous and respected. After a few minutes, she spoke again. "Mercer, I want you to lead this team. Coordinate the repairs, delegate the tasks, and ensure all safety protocols are followed. I trust your judgment." Ethan blinked. "Lead the team," he repeated. It wasn't often that an engineer like him got such direct authority. "Of course, Commander, I won't let you down." Alara's lips curved into a faint smile. "I know you won't." As the day progressed, Ethan found himself juggling multiple responsibilities. He guided a team of technicians through recalibration, checked power outputs, and monitored the filtration node's efficiency. All the while, Alara remained close, her presence a quiet support rather than interference. She asked questions occasionally, not to challenge him, but to understand his methods. During a brief break, Ethan stepped aside and reviewed the schematics on his wrist console. The problem was more complicated than he had anticipated. A few of the filtration nodes had corroded faster than expected, and the backup systems were insufficient. He could improvise, but it would take careful planning. Alara approached him quietly, holding a small tablet. "I ran the simulations overnight," she said. "Your approach is solid, but I noticed a potential overload in Node 7 if we proceed without adjusting the power grid. I've recalculated the parameters for you." Ethan looked at her, surprised. "You did this for me," Alara nodded. "I've seen how you handle pressure. I want you to succeed. Consider it a way of saying thank you." Ethan felt a warmth in his chest. Last night he had saved her from danger, and now she was ensuring he could succeed in his work. It was a rare feeling, recognition from someone he respected deeply. "Thank you, Commander," he said sincerely. She gave a small nod and stepped back. "Now let's see you work." With renewed determination, Ethan led the team through the intricate recalibrations. Hours passed, filled with the hum of machinery, the glow of holographic displays, and the careful adjustments of critical systems. The team trusted him, and under his guidance they worked efficiently. During the process, Ethan noticed Alara quietly stepping in to assist where she could, not as a commander giving orders, but as someone who wanted to ensure the success of the mission. She helped reroute power lines and adjusted control panels, showing a surprising level of technical skill. Yet, every action was measured, respectful, and never intrusive. By mid-afternoon, the filtration system was finally stable. Ethan ran the final diagnostics, his fingers flying over the interface. The results confirmed that the system was fully operational, even better than before. The team cheered softly, proud of their accomplishment. Alara approached him, her expression unreadable for a moment. Then she placed a hand lightly on his shoulder. "You did well, Mercer, better than I could have hoped." Ethan felt a rush of pride. "We all did, the team worked hard." "Yes," Alara agreed, "but you led them, that matters." The acknowledgement hit Ethan in a way he hadn't expected. He was used to recognition being quiet, sometimes non-existent, but here it was direct, sincere, and meaningful. Later, as the team wrapped up, Alara lingered. "There's something else," she said, her voice lowering. "I want you to know that last night your actions didn't go unnoticed. You saved me, and that tells me a lot about your character." Ethan's eyes widened slightly. It was nothing special. I just did what I had to do." "No," she said firmly, "it was special. You acted without hesitation. You protected someone who couldn't protect herself at that moment. That takes courage, Mercer. Not everyone has it. He felt a mix of embarrassment and gratitude. Thank you, Commander. That means a lot. Alara nodded, her gaze softening. I think it means a lot to everyone, not just me. Your example sets a standard for the team, for the colony. Sometimes, the most important heroes are the ones who act quietly, without seeking reward. Ethan thought of Leela, waiting for him at home, her small hands reaching for the plant he had promised. He realized that her eyes would shine with pride, just as Alara's had today. Being a hero wasn't about recognition. It was about protecting what mattered and helping those who couldn't help themselves. As the day ended, Ethan finally allowed himself a moment to breathe. He returned to his workstation, finishing the minor reports and logging the system updates. The sun had set, and the city lights reflected in his tired eyes. Alara approached one last time before leaving. Mercer, I'll make sure your work today is properly recognized in the colony's records. People should know what you've done. Ethan shook his head with a small smile. I don't need recognition, just doing my job is enough. Alara smiled back, a rare, genuine smile. Then consider this my way of remembering. I won't forget. As she left, Ethan felt a strange mix of satisfaction and curiosity. There was something about Alara's words, her presence, and the way she trusted him that gave him a renewed sense of purpose. He wasn't just an engineer or a single dad trying to survive. He was someone capable of making a real difference in the lives of others. Walking home through the colony streets, Ethan felt lighter than he had in weeks. The neon lights glimmered around him, casting reflections that danced like fireflies. In the distance, he could see the daycare pod where Leela waited. Her laughter and energy were the things that mattered most, and tonight he would return to her with pride in his heart. And in the quiet corners of the colony, Commander Alara Voss would remember Ethan Mercer, not just as an engineer, not just as a father, but as a man whose courage and compassion shone brightly, even in the darkest moments. Ethan Mercer was tightening the last panel on a cooling unit when the low, pulsing alarm echoed through the engineering bay. At first no one reacted. New Arcadia had drills often, too often, some said, but this sound was different, deeper, urgent. Red lights flashed along the ceiling. Attention all personnel, a calm but serious voice announced through the speakers. This is not a drill. Unknown aerial units have breached the outer perimeter. All departments stand by for emergency instructions. Ethan froze. His first thought was not the colony. It was Leela. He tapped his wrist console quickly, pulling up the colony map. The daycare pod showed green, secure, but his chest still felt tight. He forced himself to breathe. Panic wouldn't help anyone. Around him, engineers began moving fast, pulling up data, activating screens, and checking systems. The calm routine of work turned into controlled chaos. Commander Alara Voss entered the bay moments later, her uniform sharp, her posture firm. There was no sign of the woman from the cantina night. This was the commander everyone knew, focused, clear, and strong. All eyes on me, she said, her voice cutting through the noise. The room fell quiet. We are facing a fleet of autonomous mining drones, she continued. Old models, abandoned years ago beyond the asteroid belt. Somehow, their core AI has reactivated and reclassified this colony as a resource target. A hologram appeared above the central table. Dozens of angular machines moved in tight formation, dark shapes against the blue curve of the planet's atmosphere. They're not attacking yet, Alara said, but they will. These units strip metal, energy, and water. If they reach the surface, we lose critical infrastructure. Ethan stepped closer, eyes narrowing as he studied the drone patterns. They're running on legacy logic, he said before he could stop himself. Alara turned to him. Explain. Ethan swallowed, then pointed at the hologram. See how they move? No variation, no adaptive spread. That means they're following an old command loop. They don't think like modern AI, they execute. A murmur spread through the room. Alara nodded slowly. Can we exploit that? Yes, Ethan said, but not with weapons. They're shielded from mining explosions. If we fire on them, they'll adapt. We need to confuse them. How? She asked. Ethan's fingers flew over the console, pulling up old files. These drones were designed to follow the strongest energy signal. Back then, mining operations used centralized power beacons. If we create a stronger signal away from the colony, they'll follow it. Silence followed. Then Alara said, "Can you do it?" Ethan hesitated. "Yes. But it'll take manual control, and someone has to reroute half the colony's grid to make the signal strong enough." "That's dangerous," one engineer said. "A mistake could black out residential sectors." Ethan nodded. "I know." Alara looked at him carefully. "Mercer, I won't order you to do this." He met her gaze. "You don't have to, I can." For a moment she saw not just an engineer but a father willing to risk himself to protect his child and everyone else's. "Then I trust you," she said. "You'll have full command access." The room went still. Full command access was something few ever received. Ethan took a deep breath. "I need a team and I need time." "You have both," Alara replied. "Everyone here answers to you." The next hour passed in a blur. Ethan coordinated teams across engineering, power control, and communications. He spoke clearly, simply, making sure everyone understood their role. He didn't shout. He didn't panic. He listened. As power was rerouted, parts of the colony dimmed. Non-essential systems shut down. Streets went quiet. Homes switched to emergency lighting. In the daycare pod, Leela sat with other children, holding her favorite book. The caretakers reassured them calmly. Outside, the sky darkened as something massive moved above the atmosphere. Ethan saw it on the screens. The drones were closer now. Alara stood beside him in the command center, watching silently. She could see the strain on his face, the careful balance he maintained. One mistake could cost lives. "Signal beacon ready," Ethan said. "But once I activate it, I'll need to manually adjust the frequency. Their AI will try to recalibrate." "That puts you at risk," Alara said. He nodded. "I know." "Why are you willing to do this?" she asked quietly. Ethan didn't look away from the screen. "Because if I don't, my daughter grows up in a broken colony, or worse." Alara said nothing. She didn't need to. "Beacon online," Ethan announced. A new light flared on the hologram far from the colony, deep in the uninhabited desert zone. At first, nothing happened. Then one drone shifted, then another. The formation began to turn, slow and deliberate, like a school of metal fish changing direction. Cheers rose in the room, but Ethan raised a hand. "Not yet. They're adapting." The drones paused mid-turn. Ethan adjusted the frequency, sweat forming on his brow. The system resisted. Warning alerts flashed. "Power instability," someone shouted. "I see it," Ethan said, holding steady. The drones resumed movement, accelerating toward the beacon. But then one broke away. "That one's running a modified subroutine," Ethan said. "It's learning." Alara's jaw tightened. "Can you stop it?" "Yes," Ethan replied. "But I'll have to overload the beacon once they're clear. It'll burn out the system." "That beacon powers half our future expansion," she said. Ethan nodded. "I know." He thought of Leela's smile, of her questions about the stars, of the world she deserved. "Do it," Alara said. Ethan waited until the last drone crossed the threshold. Then he pushed the system beyond its limits. The beacon flared brighter than the sun on the screens. The rogue drone surged forward, and then shut down mid-flight, its systems overwhelmed. One by one, the others followed, shutting down safely in the desert, far from the colony. Silence filled the command center. Then cheers erupted, people laughed, some cried, some simply sat down, exhausted. Ethan slumped back in his chair, breathing hard. Alara placed a hand on his shoulder. "You saved the colony." He shook his head weakly. "We all did." "No," she said. "You led, you trusted people." "And they trusted you." Medical staff checked him over. He waved them away once they confirmed he was fine. His wrist console chimed. A message from the daycare pod. Layla is safe. She says she can't wait to see you. Ethan closed his eyes, relief washing over him. As emergency lights faded and normal power returned, Alara looked out over the colony. Humanity had faced something built for efficiency, for cold logic, for endless extraction. And humanity had won, not with brute force but with creativity, cooperation, and heart. She turned to Ethan Mercer, single father, engineer, protector. And she knew this was only the beginning. The colony of New Arcadia was quiet the morning after the drone incident. The sun rose slowly over the artificial sky, casting soft light across the clean streets and gleaming towers. For most of the inhabitants, it was another ordinary day, but for Ethan Mercer, the past 24 hours had changed everything. He walked through the engineering bay, his steps lighter than usual. The hum of machinery and occasional sparks of welding arcs felt almost comforting. The crisis was over, but the memory of the drones, the fear, and the adrenaline still lingered in his chest. Alara Voss was already there when he arrived. She was standing near the central terminal, reviewing reports, her sharp eyes scanning every detail. Her uniform was impeccable, her hair tied neatly, but there was a softness in her expression that hadn't been there before. "Mercer," she said, not looking up immediately, "you got some rest." "Some," he admitted with a small smile. "Not much. Leela wanted to tell me all about her day." Alara glanced at him then, her eyes focusing on his face. "Good. She should know her father helped save the colony." Ethan chuckled softly, feeling a mix of pride and embarrassment. "She already thinks I'm a hero because I make the best hydroponic plants." Alara raised an eyebrow, the corner of her lips twitching. "That may be true, but today you're a hero in a slightly bigger way." The morning passed with routine checks, but the tension from yesterday had not completely lifted. Ethan coordinated with his team, making sure that all damaged systems from the drone attack were fully restored. He worked efficiently, balancing his responsibilities with quiet determination. Alara stayed nearby, sometimes offering guidance, sometimes watching silently. During a brief pause, she approached him. "Mercer," she said softly, "may I ask you something?" He looked up from his console. "Of course, Commander. Yesterday, your actions saved countless lives, but it wasn't just the drones or the systems you managed. It was how you stayed calm under pressure, how you led people without panic. That's rare." "Have you always been like this?" Ethan paused, thinking. He had never considered himself extraordinary. He was just a father trying to make a life for his daughter, doing his best at his job. "I guess I try to focus on what matters," he said finally. "When people are in danger or when someone depends on you, you can't panic. You just do what needs to be done." Alara nodded slowly, studying him. "That's admirable, and it's why I trust you, not just for work but for the colony itself." Ethan felt a warmth in his chest. Recognition from her had always been important, but her words went deeper. They acknowledged his courage, his intelligence, and his heart. Later, they walked together through the corridors of the colony. The smell of heated metal and recycled air mixed with the faint scent of freshly grown plants from the hydroponic gardens. Ethan showed her the new filtration recalibrations he had implemented, explaining the improvements step by step. Alara listened intently, asking questions that revealed her understanding of the systems. "You really thought of everything," she said finally. "I'm impressed, Mercer." He shrugged modestly. "I have to. Too many people depend on this colony. And I have a small daughter depending on me too." Alara smiled faintly. "Your daughter, she must be proud of you." "She is," Ethan said softly, thinking of Leela's bright eyes and her endless questions about stars and planets. "And I'm proud of her too." For a while they walked in silence, each absorbed in their thoughts. There was a comfort in their quiet companionship, a mutual respect growing stronger with every shared moment. The day continued with minor emergencies, system checks, and team coordination. Ethan handled each task with precision, earning quiet nods and approving glances from his colleagues. Alara watched from a distance, occasionally stepping in to offer her expertise or to ensure safety protocols were followed. She never took control from him, but her presence was a steady reassurance, a reminder that he was not alone in his responsibilities. By late afternoon, the engineering bay had returned to its normal rhythm. The emergency lights were off, the machinery hummed steadily, and the colony's systems were fully operational again. Ethan leaned back in his chair, exhausted but satisfied. Alara approached him once more, her expression serious but warm. "Mercer, I want you to know, your leadership yesterday didn't just save systems and resources. It saved people, and it showed me something important about the human spirit." Ethan looked at her, curious. "What do you mean?" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "In this colony, in our work, we rely heavily on technology. AI, drones, automated systems. They handle most of the heavy lifting. But they lack something humans have: judgment, empathy, courage. Your actions reminded me that humanity is the greatest strength we possess. Even against machines, logic, and chaos, the human heart matters most." Ethan felt a lump in his throat. It was rare for anyone to speak so openly about his actions, even rarer from someone like Alara, who usually reserved praise for achievements, not personal qualities. "Thank you," he said simply. "You don't need to thank me," she replied. "But I do want you to know that I noticed, and I won't forget. Not now, not ever." Later, as the day ended, Ethan returned home. The streets of New Arcadia were bathed in the warm glow of evening lights. He found Leela waiting as usual, her small face lighting up at the sight of him. "Daddy," she cried, running into his arms. He laughed, hugging her tightly. "Hey, kiddo, how was your day?" "Good," she said excitedly. "We painted stars in class, and Mommy says you're a hero." Ethan's eyebrows shot up. "A hero?" Leela nodded eagerly. "Yeah, you saved the colony, everyone says so." He smiled, ruffling her hair. "Well, I did what I had to do," she giggled. "You're the best dad in the universe." Later that night, Ethan sat by Leela's bed, tucking her in. The little hydroponic plant he had brought for her glowed faintly in the corner of the room. Its leaves shimmered softly under the artificial light, and Ethan imagined it growing tall and strong, just like the colony he had helped protect. "Daddy," Leela said sleepily, "do you think I could be a hero like you?" Ethan kissed her forehead. "Of course, Leela. Being a hero isn't about fighting machines or fixing systems. It's about caring for others, helping when you can, and staying brave even when things are scary. You already have all of that inside you." She smiled and closed her eyes. "Good night, Daddy." "Good night, kiddo," he whispered. The next morning, Ethan returned to the engineering bay. Alara was already there, reviewing project reports. She looked up as he entered, giving him a small, approving nod. "You handled yesterday well," she said. "But today, we have another challenge. Sector 9's climate regulators are unstable. We need to stabilize them before the next cycle, or the crops could fail." Ethan glanced at the data. The task was critical but manageable. He knew he could handle it. "I'll lead the team," he said, determined. Alara nodded. "I trust you as always, and I want you to know that your courage inspires more than just me. The team sees it too. They respect you, Mercer." Ethan felt a quiet pride. He had always believed in doing his best, in protecting those who depended on him, but hearing it aloud made it real. His actions mattered, not just to Leela, not just to the colony, but to the people around him. The day passed with steady work, careful planning, and quiet collaboration. Ethan guided his team, solved problems, and ensured safety. Alara offered insight when needed, but allowed him the colony of New Arcadia was alive with activity. Weeks had passed since the rogue drone incident, and life had returned to its normal rhythm, or at least as normal as it could be on a distant terraformed planet. Markets buzzed with traders, engineers repaired minor damages, and children played among the glowing hydroponic gardens. Ethan Mercer walked through the central plaza, a small smile on his face. The sun hung low in the artificial sky, reflecting off the gleaming towers. Despite the calm, he felt a sense of anticipation. Today was special. Commander Alara Voss had requested a meeting with the entire colony's key personnel. Rumors had already spread. Some whispered that awards were being given. Others guessed that the council would recognize the engineers who had saved the colony. Ethan felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. He had never sought recognition. Saving people had always been enough. Yet, as he approached the Central Assembly Hall, he saw Alara standing at the front, her presence commanding attention as always. Engineers, security officers, administrators, and even some civilians filled the hall. Everyone looked to the commander for guidance. Alara's gaze found Ethan as he stepped in. Her eyes softened and she gave a small nod. Ethan returned it, uncertain but quietly proud. "Good morning, everyone," Alara began. Her voice echoed clearly, carrying authority and warmth. "Today, we recognize individuals who showed courage, ingenuity, and leadership in the face of extraordinary danger. Our colony faced a threat that could have caused serious harm to our people and infrastructure, but thanks to their actions, we are safe." A holographic display lit up behind her, showing the rogue drones in flight and then being redirected safely to the desert. The image reminded everyone of the chaos, the fear, and the near disaster that had been avoided. Ethan's heart beat faster. Alara continued, "Many of you worked tirelessly to repair systems, maintain power, and ensure safety. But one person's leadership stood out, not because he sought glory, but because he acted with courage, intelligence, and heart." She paused. Ethan could hear his own pulse. "Ethan Mercer," she said, her voice firm and clear. "Single father, engineer, and protector of this colony. You not only solved a critical problem, but you led a team under pressure, saved lives, and reminded us all why humanity, our judgment, our courage, and our compassion, is our greatest strength." The room erupted into applause. Ethan felt a rush of disbelief. Recognition had never been something he chased, but hearing it now, publicly, in front of his peers and the colony, made him feel seen. He stepped forward as Alara handed him a small plaque. It was simple, engraved with the words. Her eyes held an expression Ethan hadn't seen before: respect, pride, and a hint of something unspoken, a quiet bond that had grown between them over weeks of danger, work, and shared challenges. After the ceremony, Ethan returned to his workstation, still processing the event. His colleagues approached him, clapping him on the back and offering congratulations. But amidst the praise, one small message brought the biggest smile to his face. A hollow message from Leela, sent from her daycare pod. "Daddy, you're a hero. I'm proud of you. Can we plant more stars in the garden tonight?" Ethan chuckled softly, feeling the tension of the past weeks melt away. He answered quickly, "Of course, kiddo. See you soon." Later, he walked through the plaza toward the hydroponic garden. The air was cool, filled with the scent of blooming plants. Leela ran to him, her small hands clutching his. "You got an award," she exclaimed. "I knew you were a hero." Ethan knelt down, holding her tightly. "We did it together," he said gently. "You helped me remember why I do this." She tilted her head, smiling. "I want to be a hero too." "You already are," Ethan replied. "Heroes aren't just people who fight machines or fix big problems. Heroes care, help, and protect. You do all of that every day." They walked among the glowing plants, planting new seedlings together. Leela's laughter echoed through the garden, mingling with the hum of the colony. Ethan watched her, realizing that this simple moment, quiet and ordinary, was as important as any recognition or award. Meanwhile, Alara observed from a distance. She had returned to the command center but had paused, watching Ethan with Leela. The bond between them had grown stronger over the past weeks, built on trust, courage, and mutual respect. She knew that the colony's success wasn't just about technology. It was about the people who had the courage to act when it mattered most. She made a note in her personal log. A single father who saved more than systems. He inspired everyone around him. He is the future we can rely on. Back in the garden, Ethan and Leela finished planting their stars. He looked around, seeing the quiet lights of the colony, the people moving about in peaceful routines, the machines humming without threat. He realized that heroism wasn't about grand gestures alone. It was about creating safety, trust, and hope for those who relied on you. "Daddy," Leela said softly, "do you think we'll ever face danger like that again?" Ethan thought for a moment, watching the sun reflect off the towers, glinting like silver stars. "Maybe," he admitted, "but if we do, we'll face it together. And we'll remember that courage, heart, and teamwork are stronger than anything else." As night fell, the sky of New Arcadia was dotted with the soft glow of artificial stars. Ethan held Leela's hand, feeling the weight of the past weeks, the dangers faced, and the victories earned. He felt proud, not for recognition, but for the chance to protect his daughter, his colleagues, and the colony he had helped build. The next day, Ethan returned to the command center. Alara was waiting, a faint smile on her lips. "You did well yesterday," she said, gesturing to the now stable systems. "But it's more than the work. You reminded everyone why humanity matters." "That matters more than any machine or AI," Ethan nodded, feeling the truth in her words. "I just did what I had to do, that's all." "Humility suits you," Alara said, "but don't underestimate the power of your actions. People will remember. You'll be a part of this colony's legacy." Ethan looked out over the colony, seeing the bustling streets, the glowing gardens, and the children playing safely. He felt a quiet pride. He had faced danger, led with courage, and protected the people who mattered most. And in doing so, he had shown that humanity, compassion, intelligence, and bravery was the colony's greatest strength. Later that evening, as he returned home, Ethan thought about the future. The colony would face new challenges, new threats, and unexpected crises. But he knew that with courage, intelligence, and heart, humanity could overcome anything. He entered his home to find Leela asleep, clutching a small, star-shaped plant they had planted together. Ethan knelt beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Good night, kiddo," he whispered. And in the quiet of the night, as the colony hummed softly around him, Ethan Mercer finally understood something profound. Heroism was not just about recognition or reward. It was about protecting what mattered, inspiring others, and showing that even in the vastness of space, humanity, brave, compassionate, and clever, would always endure. As he closed his eyes, he felt a quiet satisfaction. He had faced danger, led with courage, and earned the respect of both Commander Alara Voss and his fellow colonists. Most importantly, he had shown his daughter the meaning of bravery and love. And in the glow of New Arcadia's lights, one truth was clear. Humanity, in all its strength and resilience, would always shine brightest when it acted with heart. Ethan Mercer, single father, engineer, and protector, had not just saved the colony. He had reminded everyone why humans were capable of greatness, even in the farthest reaches of space. And that legacy, quiet yet unshakable, would endure for generations to come. Full control, trusting his judgment and leadership. As evening fell, the colony once again returned to a peaceful rhythm. Ethan walked home, his thoughts lingering on the day's events. He realized that the bond between him and Alara had deepened. It was not just respect or gratitude, it was understanding. She saw his courage, his heart, and his unwavering sense of responsibility. And he, in turn, saw hers, her commitment to the colony, her respect for people, and her ability to inspire trust without demanding it. Ethan knew that this partnership, this bond, was rare. It was a connection built on shared experience, mutual respect, and the understanding that true strength came from humanity itself. As he approached Leela's daycare pod, he smiled, knowing that whatever challenges the future held, rogue drones, system failures, or even greater dangers, he would face them with courage, with heart, and with the knowledge that someone believed in him. And in the quiet corners of New Arcadia, Commander Alara Voss would remember Ethan Mercer, not just as an engineer, not just as a father, but as a man whose bravery, wisdom, and compassion had left a lasting mark on everyone around him.